Hey everyone, it's Meredith from Miss Meredith Made. I wanted to do this video today because I got a comment recently on one of my most recent videos from a viewer who commented kind of their story, if you will, about how they haven't necessarily taught in the classroom, but they have been homeschooling and took their homeschool experience to make a Teachers Pay Teachers shop. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing a roadmap, if you will, of each month, things that you can be working on throughout the entire school year. Starting with the month of December, I would suggest making and posting anything you want to make that is Valentine's themed. And not just Valentine's in the sense of Cupid and hearts, you can also stretch this to kindness, friendship. You can also think of President's Day things during this time of year as well. In January, I would suggest getting all of your St. Patrick's Day items ready. So whether it's centers activities, math worksheets, what have you, just have them be springy, St. Patrick's Day themed, and have them up and ready to go by the end of January. Trust me when I say this, I know I'm gonna be repeating myself, but I know this from being in the classroom myself. I was searching for items, honestly, about 2 months ahead. So everything I'm sharing each month is about 2 months ahead to make sure that you have time to be as successful as you possibly can. An example of this would be in January, think about making products that can align with springtime units. So like weather cycle, animal cycle units, things that can supplement what are possibly already bought out by districts. So you can be making anchor chart resources, you can be making crafts to go along with it, but hardcore curriculum, I just don't recommend people doing that because so many teachers already have something that they have to use. In February, you can start making Easter themed resources, Earth Day themed resources. If you see me looking over to the left, I have a list of my ideas just because, quite frankly, I'm not going to be able to remember them all off the top of my head. But also in February, I recommend start working on and posting anything to do with test prep. Because in a couple of months, it's going to be the end of the year for teachers and testing season starts up. So you can think about things to motivate students to do well on their test, things like that. In March, you are creating and posting products that can be useful for teachers at the end of the school year. And be careful with this, that you check Teachers Pay Teachers. Literally just search what you are thinking that you may post, scroll to the bottom and see how many resources there are for that search, because there are a ton of end of year resources, things like end of year classroom awards. Those are so popular and teachers love them, but there are literally thousands upon thousands of those resources already out there. So this is when people say niche down, and I absolutely hate the word niche, just to be clear, but you gotta say it. But niche down a little bit and think about things that students and teachers are doing at the end of the year. So things like field day, okay? These are things that not only teachers need, but parents that are helping out with field day. They can be resources that talk about the games, getting the students excited. And also in a couple of months, things like Mother's Day are occurring, Father's Day, things like that. So just think about the smaller items that are going on at the end of the year instead of the super duper popular ones, because I find that the things that are already popular, there's already way too much out there and you're just going to have an impossible time competing. During this time too, you can think about some summer resources that you think that students, parents, camp counselors may want for the summer season. So this is where I come into play a lot on my store because I am a tutor and I tutor a lot in the summer. So a lot of my tutoring products that I use for my own tutees, my students, I literally just post onto Teachers Pay Teachers and they do well because there's a lot of teachers that teach during the summer, and you can also do things for parents to supplement activities that they have going on with their children, such as things like vacation, travel planners, logs to have their students engage while they're on a road trip, things like that. So this is where I say that to be a TPT seller, I do think that you need to have some creativity to kind of think outside the box and think about what are people not thinking of that some families need. And this is great for the person that commented that inspired this video, who was a homeschool mom. You know, these are things that she probably notices at home or other homeschool parents notice. So you have an upper advantage with that. You know, think about what would be really great at home during the summer with your own real life children. In April, you should be making all of your back to school stuff. So no matter what you like to do for back to school, whether it's decor, back to school themed worksheets, every teacher in the world is getting ready for back to school season, and they need things to get down their routines. That is something that curriculum typically is not bought out for. So it's good to have social emotional things. I know that when I was leaving teaching at the end of my last year there, they were starting to look into buying out social emotional curriculum, but we still were the ones in charge primarily for finding anything social emotional, back to school, getting students ready for routines. Those are super, super important. Back to school season is such a high selling point for Teachers Pay Teachers sellers, and such a time for teachers to be hunting down what they want to be doing throughout the entire school year. So if there is anything that you think that teachers will benefit from, especially your bundles, work on bundling in May. This is a big suggestion to do because so many teachers, when they go back to school shopping, they're looking for bundles. What can I use the entire year? I'm only shopping, you know, this month in early August. So you're prepping in May, getting these up by end of May, giving teachers a couple of months to actively search for these things. And I did this myself over summer. I was actively searching on Teachers Pay Teachers for bundles. What will work for my entire year that I teach? Because the last thing I want to do is buy a million things from a million different sellers and constantly be stressed about what am I doing next. I literally loved year-long bundles so that I just knew, hey, I am set for the entire year, whether that is organizational slides, whether that is year-long morning work, year-long classroom newsletters, whatever you can think of that you can bundle between April and May, highly suggest doing that. In June, you should be making your September products. A lot of teachers do Apple themed units during the month of September. So in the month of June, if you want to try to do some Apple themed resources, whether they are resources to supplement curriculum like math units and you throw some images of apples on there, however you go about it. But I know for me, when I was in the classroom, I always did a couple of Apple units. I would do literally the life cycle of an apple every single year. My class and I would make something with apples. So typically we would do applesauce. I would bring in my crock pot. They would help me peel the apples with, you know, one of those hand crank peelers. And it was really fun. And I would always look for resources to supplement those activities. Many teachers go on field trips to apple orchards, so you could do something to supplement that experience. You're trying to think about, again, supplementing real experiences that teachers are doing during each time of the year. July, you're starting to think about fall, pumpkins. Again, you have things like the pumpkin life cycle. Many students in their classrooms, they may go to a pumpkin patch. So it's similar to the previous month with apples, except you can throw in some spooky Halloween items. Just do keep in mind that many schools now do not allow directly calling it Halloween or doing anything overly spooky. So just do keep that in mind, that if you do that, that you may be only really marketable to a smaller amount of schools nowadays. I'm not saying if I agree with that or not, that's just how that is. In July, you're preparing for the month of October. In October, there is also Fire Safety Week. A lot of teachers call in local fire department staff and they'll do a lesson with the kids about fire safety. You can think about some supplemental resources to help out with experiences like that. In August, you're creating for November. There are a couple of things going on in November, such as Veterans Day. A lot of students have family members that are veterans, so this is a wonderful experience to create resources that are inclusive for students that have a veteran in their life or for teachers that want to teach students about veterans. There are also many experiences that many teachers do, such as writing to local veterans. You can make writing paper that is veterans themed, things like that. And also, of course, Thanksgiving, but it doesn't have to necessarily be Thanksgiving directly because there are many students that don't celebrate Thanksgiving. You can do resources that are all about gratitude and being grateful. So again, even though it's a holiday, a lot of these things I'm saying, such as Valentine's Day, there's kindness. October, even though it's Halloween, you can do fall, pumpkin themed ideas. This is the same theme that we're seeing here. Even though it's Thanksgiving, be creative off of how you can make tangents, if you will, from that holiday. And Thanksgiving, you can think about food, recipes, how-to writing. How do you make the food for Thanksgiving? What are you grateful for? Crafts that go along with it. So be creative and try to be different than what everyone else is doing. In September, you should be creating for the winter months. Please do keep in mind that many teachers have holiday breaks during the winter months. For example, I only taught about 2 weeks every December when I was in the classroom. And many teachers are looking for things that calm excitement during this time of year. So you can do things like gingerbread units that can be educational, like how to make gingerbread. In October, I suggest preparing some goal setting activities. How you go about it is up to you, whether you want it to be in poem form, whether you want it to be a craft, whether you want it to be a collaborative activity with students, but something with goal setting because we will have the new year coming up. In the last month that I'll be talking about, being November, because we have already covered all of the main themes, this is your time now to be a proactive seller. And what I mean by that is do not be reactive and now follow this every single month, because it's going to feel really stressful if you're like, well, teachers want this in 2 months, teachers want this in 2 months. You have now created pretty much for an entire year. Go into Teachers Pay Teachers, look at your product, that word is hard to say fast, product statistics, and look into what has sold really well for you in the past year. Let's say you made something in the first month that we talked about, being December, and let's say you made a Valentine's resource and it has sold pretty well, or it is your bestseller. I would start in November, make a list of your top 3 bestsellers and start adding to those product lines to create bundles for those. That way you can be prepared for back to school season the next year for the teachers that really, really liked those products. You do not want to be in this cycle constantly of trying to think about and anticipating what people are looking for. You want to be a proactive seller. Yes, post for an entire year, see what does well, and then be data driven and go off of the data. That would be my best suggestion for year 2, and that is what I am doing, and that's why I suggest that, because I did do pretty much this schedule for an entire year, and now I have an entire year's worth of products up on my store, and now I am really focusing on my data and saying, hey, these resources have sold really well for me. I am going to start making more of them and just focusing on my top sellers, and then I am going to bundle them and be really, really proactive and ready for next back to school season. As I'm making this video, I realized that the person that commented and inspired this video no way is the only person that wants to know this information. And I know for me, it would have been really nice to have this all spelled out for me and have a nice visual to focus and be able to know exactly what I should work on every single month, especially in my first full year. And honestly, if you're watching this, you may be thinking, oh my gosh, I've been trying to sell on Teachers Pay Teachers for many years, and I've never had a good plan to go off of, and that's totally okay. A lot of times when you are creative, and I relate to this because obviously I'm creative as well, an idea comes in and you work on that idea, it gets finished, and then another idea comes in and you work on that, and it's just not a bigger picture. And I think that having a concrete plan is really important so that you stay in line and you stay focused on the bigger picture and don't just start working on things here and there and it doesn't ever come together, if that makes sense. So as I'm making this, I thought maybe I should make this calendar for free for people that are interested in it. Again, my purpose of making these videos is not to sell anyone anything, quite honestly, at this point. It is truthfully just to build a community and get you guys to join me along on my TPT selling journey. But if you are interested in this free download, you can go to Miss Meredith Made on Teachers Pay Teachers. Again, it is totally free for you to download, and you can have a nice visual for either your first full year, or if you want to get really serious starting today on your Teachers Pay Teachers selling journey. Thank you, and as always, leave in my comments if you have any questions or things that you would like to add to this video. This video would never have been made if I didn't get a comment on a couple of videos back. So you guys are honestly helping me help other people and yourselves. So if you do have questions, leave them in the comments and I will either write you a response back or post a response in video form like this one. Wishing you all the best on your selling journey.